The twin suns of Tatooine blazed over an endless ocean of sand. For generations, smugglers, scavengers, and slaves had cursed that heat, but on this day, even the suns themselves seemed to falter. Above the world, the sky cracked open. A wound in reality bled violet light across the void, splitting through orbit like torn fabric. The sensors of Imperial outposts screamed as an anomaly unlike any hyperspace entry in recorded history appeared. A structure, no, a fortress, emerged from the rift, dragging storms of unnatural energy behind it. It was neither ship nor station. It was alive with magic. The Great Tomb of Nazarick had arrived. Inside its gilded halls, the world's most powerful undead opened his eyes. "Where are we?" His voice, deep and resonant, rolled through marble corridors lined with monstrous statues. The overlord known as Ainz Ooal Gown rose from his obsidian throne, skeletal fingers curling around a staff of Ainz Ooal Gown, 7 serpentine heads glittering with divine light. He felt it instantly, the shift. The air was different. The magic, twisted, diluted. There was a pulse to this realm, invisible yet constant, as if reality itself breathed through every molecule. And it was watching him. He called forth his guardians. Within seconds, the chamber filled with the loyal elite of Nazarick, Albedo, Demiurge, Shaltir Bloodfallen, Cocytus, Mare, and Aura, each kneeling before their supreme ruler. "My lord," said Demiurge, his forked tail flicking, "our teleportation network reports partial interference. The spatial coordinates are inconsistent with any known realm. The local energy field resists analysis." "Resists?" Ainz tilted his head, the hollow sockets of his skull faintly glowing crimson. "Explain." "It's not mana, my lord," Demiurge continued. "It is something pervasive. Intelligent. Almost as if the air itself possesses will." Ainz fell silent, considering. His arcane senses reached outward, testing the edges of the anomaly. He felt it, the force. And it felt him in return. The connection was alien, yet familiar, an energy field both everywhere and nowhere, ancient yet harmonious. Ainz's presence, by contrast, was an infection in its perfect balance. A necromantic consciousness in a universe built upon life. For the first time in centuries, something other than Ainz reached back. Meanwhile, Imperial ships were scrambling. The orbiting Imperial garrison commander aboard the Devastator II could hardly believe the readings. That thing just appeared out of hyperspace. No signature, no trajectory, no jump trace. Nothing. He opened a comm channel directly to Coruscant. "Your Majesty, the object defies classification. It's not of known design." On the other end, cloaked in shadows, Emperor Palpatine leaned forward. His yellow eyes glimmered with sinister delight. "I have felt it," he hissed. "A presence that mocks the dark side itself. Dispatch Lord Vader." Back within Nazarick, Mare and Aura had already begun analyzing atmospheric data. "My lord," Mare reported nervously, "this world nearby, it's mostly desert, with small moisture settlements and trade routes. The people are primitive, but some technology is." "Irrelevant," Ainz interrupted gently. "What matters is where we stand in relation to its rulers." Albedo smiled faintly, her golden eyes alight with devotion. "Shall I prepare diplomatic outreach, or annihilation, my lord?" "Neither," Ainz said. "Observation first. Contact later." But even as he spoke, an alert echoed through Nazarick's halls. The automated defense system registered incoming hostiles. In orbit above, TIE fighters broke formation and circled the mysterious fortress like flies around a corpse. A star destroyer loomed behind them, its colossal silhouette blotting the stars. The Empire had come to investigate. Ainz lifted his staff, spreading necrotic energy through the air like ink in water. His tone, calm as ever, carried power. "So, this galaxy sends its emissaries. Let us greet them as befits our station. Demiurge, prepare a projection chamber." I wish to speak with their leader directly. Minutes later, an Imperial hail flickered through the void. A hologram of an officer appeared, proud, severe, utterly unaware of whom he was addressing. Unidentified vessel, you are trespassing in Imperial space. State your purpose and allegiance. Allegiance? Ainz's hollow voice reverberated through the chamber. To myself, of course. The officer frowned. This structure belongs to whom? To Ainz Ooal Gown, supreme ruler of the Great Tomb of Nazarick. There was a silence. Then laughter, curt, dismissive. Then consider yourself under Imperial jurisdiction. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Behind Ainz, Albedo's wings flared in outrage, and Demiurge's grin sharpened like a blade. Ainz's tone didn't rise, but the air grew colder. Boarded? How quaint. Without another word, he raised one skeletal hand. A ring of fire circled it, forming a complex runic matrix. With a single gesture, he spoke the word. Grasp heart. The Imperial officer clutched his chest, eyes wide with terror, and collapsed dead before the connection severed. In the silence that followed, Albedo whispered. My lord, shall we retaliate fully? No. Let them come, Ainz replied. We will learn their strength, and their arrogance. He turned toward the observation window, gazing down at the desert world below and the gathering Imperial fleet. This galaxy is rich with power. But unlike Yggdrasil's worlds, this one already kneels to something unseen. Demiurge's smile curved, gleaming in the torchlight. Then perhaps, my lord, we should show them what it means to kneel to you. Ainz nodded slowly. Prepare Nazarick's defenses. Let them test their might against ours. And inform Shaltir, to restrain herself. The guardians dispersed, leaving Ainz alone in the vast throne room. He raised his gaze to the stars beyond the chamber dome, his voice soft but carrying an ancient chill. So, this is your domain. Emperor of this galaxy. Let us see whose dominion endures. As the star destroyers closed in, the space between them began to darken, and something vast stirred from Nazarick's depths. The galaxy shuddered that night. Even on worlds far from the outer rim, Force sensitives felt it, a chill that slithered through hyperspace and coiled around their hearts. A new presence had entered the galaxy, ancient yet alien, intelligent yet wrong. In the darkened throne room of the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, the Emperor sat motionless, his yellow eyes reflecting the storm above the city spires. Lightning forked beyond the transparent steel windows, casting long shadows across his hooded face. He whispered, more to the galaxy than to his apprentice. Something stirs in the void. It is not the Force. And yet, it dares to rival it. Vader stood at the foot of the throne, his breath steady but wary. He, too, had felt it, an oppressive pulse that had nearly overloaded his suit's life support sensors. The disturbance feels alive, my master. Not like the Jedi. Not even like you. Palpatine's lip curled. Alive? No. What you felt, Lord Vader, was death, refined. Pure. Controlled. Someone, or something, has breached our galaxy, bringing power beyond comprehension. You will go to Tatooine. You will find it. The mere mention of that name ignited embers of the past beneath Vader's armor, the memories of sand, heat, and loss. His mechanical hand tightened, the faint whine of servos echoing softly. Yes, my master, he said, bowing. And if I find the source? Palpatine's grin widened into a cavernous sneer. Then bring it to me. Alive, if you can. Far away, in the desert night, the people of Mos Espa stared upward. The once quiet sky now roared with life as Imperial star destroyers blotted out the stars, forming a blockade around the mysterious floating fortress. Within hours, the Empire had mobilized an entire fleet. Shuttles departed, filled with stormtroopers, technicians, and droids programmed to catalog the anomaly. Yet none of them truly understood what awaited them. Because Nazarick was not a ship. It was alive. Deep within the Great Tomb, in the golden-lit throne room of the 9th floor, Ainz Ooal Gown sat upon his black throne, his skeletal fingers resting lightly against his chin. Behind him stood Albedo, her wings trembling slightly with anticipation, and Demiurge, adjusting his glasses with a smirk that betrayed both curiosity and malice. "My lord," Demiurge began, "the approaching vessels belong to a governing faction known as the Galactic Empire. They control the majority of this galaxy's populated systems through fear, military might, and a curious energy field known as the Force." Ainz tilted his head. "The Force?" "Yes, my lord. It is a universal power that binds all living things. Certain individuals manipulate it for either destruction or protection. Their users are called Jedi or Sith." For a moment, silence filled the room, the kind of silence only Ainz could create, heavy with calculation. Then he laughed, softly at first, then with rising amusement. "A power that binds all living things. Humph. How quaint." The Guardians exchanged glances. Only Albedo dared to speak. "Shall I prepare a defense, my lord? These invaders dare to approach your throne." Ainz raised a skeletal hand, the motion calm yet commanding. "No. We will observe. For now, I wish to see what manner of creatures rule this galaxy. Perhaps they are worthy of being ruled." Outside, the first wave of Imperial ships descended. The flagship Avenger, commanded by Admiral Kane Draven, came into close orbit with the structure. The Admiral's voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified fortress, this is Admiral Draven of the Imperial Navy. You are trespassing in Imperial space. Power down your defenses and prepare to be boarded." No response. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Suddenly, the void shimmered, and a swarm of black-armored entities appeared. Death Knights, riding floating skeletal dragons, surrounded the fleet in eerie silence. "What in the blazes?" the Admiral stammered, leaning forward as the radar bloomed red. Before he could react, a voice filled every comm channel across the fleet, cold, resonant, and ancient. "You stand before the Great Tomb of Nazarick," it said. "Your intrusion is noted. Your lives are negotiable." Then the voice vanished, leaving static and terror in its wake. In his shuttle, Vader listened to the transmission in silence. His mechanical fingers flexed around the hilt of his lightsaber. "Set a course for the fortress," he ordered. "No one fires until I say so." As his Lambda-class shuttle descended toward Nazarick, even he, the Dark Lord of the Sith, felt something he had not felt in decades, the sensation of being watched. Not by the Force, but by something that studied him like prey. Inside the throne room, Albedo's smile deepened. "A single craft approaches, my lord. Its occupant radiates an energy disturbingly similar to the Force Demiurge described." "Good," Ainz said, rising slowly from his throne. His robe shimmered like living shadow, the sigils along his staff glowing faintly. "It is time I meet this galaxy's envoy myself." He paused, voice echoing through the chamber. "Perhaps this empire can be useful to Nazarick, or perhaps it will become fertilizer for my future world." The doors opened, and Ainz stepped forward, an unholy monarch striding through gold and darkness. Outside, Darth Vader's shuttle pierced the tomb's outer perimeter. The gates yawned open on their own, as if the fortress itself invited him inside. He did not speak. He did not slow. He simply walked forward, his breath steady, his saber at his side. For the first time in his life, the Dark Lord of the Sith was not the most powerful being in the room. The silence inside Nazarick was unlike any silence in the galaxy. It wasn't empty, it listened. The air itself seemed alive, thick with unseen whispers and unseen eyes. Even Vader's mechanical breathing echoed strangely, as though the walls themselves were measuring each sound, tasting it. He strode forward down the endless black corridor, flanked by death knights whose armor shimmered faintly in the dim golden glow. Their weapons hummed with necrotic energy, their hollow eyes fixed on him. For all his mastery of fear, even Vader could sense it, not through the Force, but through instinct. Something greater was here. Something that understood dominion even better than the Sith. The heavy doors at the end of the hall opened without a sound. Inside, the throne room of Nazarick unfolded before him, a cathedral of obsidian and gold, dominated by a massive throne that seemed to drink in light itself. And seated upon that throne was Ainz Ooal Gown. He rose slowly, staff in hand, his skeletal form radiating cold authority. The jewels embedded in his robes flickered like dying stars. Vader paused halfway across the chamber, the crimson glow of his saber reflecting against the bone-white mask of the Overlord. No one spoke. For a moment, the two most feared beings of their respective universes simply looked at each other, the Force and magic circling like wolves in a dark forest. Finally, Ainz's voice cut through the stillness, smooth, calm, yet impossibly deep. "You are the one they call Vader." Vader's helmet tilted slightly. "You know my name. Names are power, Lord of the Sith. And I collect power." Ainz's empty eye sockets glowed faintly with crimson light. "Your empire sent warships to my domain. I could have annihilated them with a gesture. Yet, I chose to observe." Vader's hand twitched toward his saber. "Then you understand the danger of opposing the Emperor." The faintest laugh echoed from the throne. "Emperor?" It wasn't amusement. It was curiosity, sharpened like a blade. "So this galaxy already belongs to another ruler. How unfortunate for him." The temperature dropped. Even through his armor, Vader could feel the cold pressing against his lungs. He ignited his lightsaber with a hiss, scarlet light flaring across the room. "You will show respect to the Emperor. Kneel, or die where you stand." Ainz tilted his skull slightly, as if considering the command of a child. "Kneel." The word came out not as a question, but a quiet mockery. Then, with a flick of his wrist, the entire chamber trembled. Vader's saber wavered as the air thickened, shimmering with invisible force. For the first time, his connection to the Force flickered. It was as if something foreign had hijacked the very fabric of reality, choking the energy that surrounded him. "You," Vader growled, straining against the invisible weight. "What, are you?" Ainz's skeletal grin widened. "Ainz Ooal Gown. Overlord of Death. Supreme ruler of the Great Tomb of Nazarick." He raised one hand, and the ground beneath Vader cracked open like glass. Dark tendrils erupted, twisting upward, laced with runes that hummed with necrotic power. They coiled around the Sith Lord, forcing him to his knees. Ainz stepped down from his throne, each footstep echoing like thunder. "Tell me, Lord Vader," he said softly, "do you serve your Emperor out of faith, or fear?" Vader's respirator hissed louder, distorted by effort. "I serve power." Ainz stopped before him, the tip of his staff glowing with sickly light. "Then perhaps," he said, "you would serve me instead." The word struck Vader harder than the spell itself. He looked up, for the first time, not in defiance, but in silent calculation. "You claim dominion over death itself. Yet, your arrogance blinds you," Vader rasped. "The Emperor's power comes from the Force, the very energy of existence. You cannot hope to stand against that." "Can I not?" Ainz murmured. He waved his hand. The room shifted again, reality folding like smoke. Suddenly, the two were standing not in the throne room, but in the blackness of open space. A storm of magic twisted around them, showing images of worlds burning, legions kneeling, and the Emperor himself screaming in shadow. "I have ended gods before, Lord Vader," Ainz said quietly. "Do not test me." Then, with another wave, the illusion vanished. The two stood once more in the chamber, the air still humming with residual power. Vader rose slowly to his feet. His saber hissed, ready to strike, but Ainz merely raised one finger. A translucent barrier of pure magic appeared before him, effortlessly absorbing the crimson blade's energy. Sparks danced across it like dying fireflies. "Your weapon draws on energy," Ainz said. "Crude, but interesting. You channel it through rage. Yet that rage does not belong to you, it belongs to your master." Vader's breathing deepened. "You know nothing of the Force." "Perhaps," Ainz replied, "but I intend to learn." He turned his back, a gesture that was neither foolish nor arrogant, but deliberate. "Leave this place, Lord Vader. Tell your Emperor that I accept his existence, for now. But should he ever attempt to claim Nazarick..." The air crackled again as blue fire rose from the ground, shaping itself into ghostly skeletal soldiers who surrounded Vader silently. "Then he will discover that the galaxy's throne has room for only one Emperor." Vader's saber dimmed. For a long moment, neither moved. Then, with a motion as cold as resignation, he deactivated his blade. "You have made your threat, sorcerer. But the Emperor will not be intimidated." Ainz inclined his head. "Good. I prefer worthy opponents." As Vader's shuttle departed Nazarick's atmosphere, he stared through the viewport at the black fortress receding behind him. Even without the Force, he could feel it watching him, ancient, patient, curious. Back on the bridge of the Avenger, the crew fell silent as he entered. Admiral Draven stammered, "My lord, what did you find down there?" Vader's voice was low, almost unreadable. "A god, who believes himself invincible." He turned, the stars reflecting against his visor. "We will see how long his faith lasts." The morning after Vader's return, Coruscant's skies burned red. It wasn't fire, not yet, but the Emperor's fury, echoing through the Force. Every dark acolyte within the Imperial Palace could feel it, the tremor of a will that refused to share the galaxy. In the depths of the palace, beneath the sprawling towers, Darth Sidious stood before a holographic projection of Nazarick. The fortress rotated slowly in midair, surrounded by fleets of star destroyers, their movements cautious, uncertain. Vader knelt before him. "The entity calls itself Ainz Ooal Gown," he reported, his mechanical voice steady but guarded. "It commands a power not bound to the Force. A necromancer, perhaps a god." The Emperor's eyes flared like molten gold. "No god dares trespass in my domain." He leaned closer to the image, studying it. "His fortress absorbs energy, repels sensors, and manifests armies from nothing. You said his minions are not alive. Dead. Reanimated. Yet, aware. They follow him with perfect obedience." Palpatine's lips curled. "Then he and I are not so different, Lord Vader." He turned away, hands clasped behind his back. "If this Overlord seeks to challenge my rule, we shall test his immortality." He gestured sharply to the side. "Send a full battle group. I want that structure crushed and its master brought before me." Vader hesitated, the smallest flicker of uncertainty. "My master, direct assault may not succeed. His defenses are beyond anything I have witnessed." Palpatine's grin deepened, cruel and knowing. "Then perhaps, my apprentice, we shall attack not with strength, but with curiosity." At the same time, far above Tatooine, Nazarick floated silently amid the void, a dark crown against the stars. Inside, Demiurge and Albedo stood before Ainz's throne. Between them knelt three trembling Imperial prisoners, stormtroopers stripped of armor, their eyes glazed with confusion. "Their energy signatures are peculiar," Demiurge said, pushing up his glasses. "Not magical, but some biological current interacts with an unseen field. This must be the Force." Ainz leaned forward slightly. "And can it be extracted?" "In theory, yes. Their bodies respond to external stimuli similar to magic, though weaker, less predictable." It is primitive. He snapped his fingers. One of the stormtroopers convulsed, screaming as faint blue light rose from his chest and swirled into Demiurge's palm. Fascinating, he murmured. Unlike mana, it is alive. It resists control. Ainz observed silently. Alive energy. A will that binds all living things. Perhaps this galaxy's foundation is not so different from our world's, only less disciplined. He rose. Continue your research, Demiurge. If we can learn to command this force, then no power, not Sith, not Jedi, shall defy Nazarick. Albedo bowed deeply. And if they attack us, my lord? Ainz's crimson gaze flared. Then let them come. I have been patient long enough. Hours later, a massive fleet appeared on the edge of Tatooine's orbit. 20 Star Destroyers emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, accompanied by dozens of support ships. Their flagship, the Wrath of Korriban, was commanded by Grand Admiral Thale Vorn, one of Palpatine's most ruthless strategists. All ships, prepare bombardment pattern Delta 3, he barked. Target the fortress. Fire on my mark. But before his order could leave his lips, every console on the bridge went black. A shrill, bone-rattling scream echoed through the ship, not mechanical, not digital, but alive. The lights flickered crimson. Crew members stumbled as a freezing wind tore through the corridors. Vorn spun toward the viewport. Status report. No one answered. Then, one by one, the crewmates began to rise, their eyes hollow, their skin drained of color. The Admiral backed away in horror as his own men turned to face him, whispering a single word that wasn't in any Imperial language. Ainz. On Nazarick's 9th floor, a mirror of dark crystal shimmered before Ainz's throne, showing the chaos aboard the Imperial fleet. He watched calmly as ships began to collide, their crews enslaved by necrotic magic. The stars were suddenly filled with drifting wreckage, an entire Imperial armada, turned against itself in minutes. They thought to threaten me with metal and pride, Ainz said softly. They forgot what true terror feels like. Demiurge smiled faintly. Should we destroy the survivors, my lord? Ainz shook his head. No. Send them back. Let their emperor see what becomes of his soldiers. When the wrecked ships limped back to Coruscant, they carried no crew, only silence. The Emperor's spies reported that the corpses inside were petrified mid-scream, their eyes burned out. Palpatine stood before one of the recovered helmets, his reflection warping in the black visor. For the first time in decades, his smirk faltered. He dares toy with me, he hissed. Very well. If this necromancer seeks war, he shall have one. Prepare the Inquisitors. The dark side must answer this insult. Vader bowed his head. But deep within his chest, something twisted, not loyalty, not fear, but curiosity. Ainz had shown him a power beyond even the Sith's comprehension. He had felt it, like standing in the shadow of an ancient god. And part of him wondered, not for the first time, if he had sworn fealty to the wrong master. Meanwhile, in Nazarick's war chamber, Demiurge's experiments continued. Crystals filled with flickering blue energy lined the walls. The force, Demiurge said, is reactive to emotion. The stronger the feeling, the brighter it burns. Fascinating. It's as if this galaxy's energy thrives on chaos. Ainz studied one of the crystals thoughtfully. Then we shall feed it. The twin suns of Tatooine had long set, but the sky still glowed red, a wound that refused to close. Above the planet, two massive fleets faced one another across the void, the Imperial Armada, arrayed in rigid formation, and the Great Tomb of Nazarick, surrounded by an unnatural halo of green fire. It was no longer a standoff. It was the calm before a war the galaxy was never meant to witness. Inside his meditation chamber aboard the Executor, Darth Vader knelt in silence. The hum of life support systems filled the air, steady and rhythmic, the breathing of a man who was more machine than flesh. He reached out into the Force. The galaxy responded with whispers, faint and fearful, as if it too felt the encroaching storm of magic bleeding through the stars. He could feel him again. Ainz Ooal Gown. That cold, calculating presence, not light, not dark, something older, something outside the Force's comprehension. And for the first time in his life, the Force seemed unsure. The door opened. A figure in dark robes stepped inside, a female inquisitor with yellow eyes and a double-bladed saber clipped to her belt. "Lord Vader," she said, bowing. "The Emperor commands that we lead the first assault. He wishes the necromancer captured alive." Vader rose slowly. "He will not be captured." The Inquisitor frowned. "Then he will be tested." Moments later, 12 shuttles departed from the Executor, descending toward Nazarick's outer structure. Each carried an Inquisitor, trained in the ways of the dark side, along with squads of elite stormtroopers. Their descent was silent, the void swallowing even the hum of their engines. But as they neared the surface, the atmosphere around Nazarick began to warp. The tomb was no longer static, it moved. Towers shifted like vertebrae. Walls rearranged themselves. The sky itself bled shadow. Then, one by one, the shuttle's systems began to fail. "We're losing control," a pilot shouted. Power fluctuations across all. The last thing any of them saw was a sea of eyes, glowing red across the black horizon. Then, darkness. Inside the throne room, Ainz raised a single bony hand. "Begin the countermeasure. Let them enter." Albedo smiled. "As you command, my lord." Across the tomb, hundreds of portals opened. The Inquisitors emerged from their crashed ships into sprawling halls that stretched for miles, filled with impossible architecture. At first, they sensed nothing, then, whispers began to rise from the walls themselves. Every shadow moved. Every echo seemed to know their names. "Stay sharp," one Inquisitor barked, igniting her crimson blade. The sound of her saber was answered by another, not from her allies, but from something deeper within the dark. A figure stepped from the gloom. It was humanoid, but not alive, a skeletal knight clad in black armor, carrying a sword that burned with pale blue fire. "Identify yourself," she demanded. The Death Knight said nothing. It simply attacked. The corridors exploded into chaos. Crimson sabers clashed against cursed blades, lightning arced across marble floors, and the screams of stormtroopers echoed like hymns of the damned. Inquisitors fought valiantly, but Nazarick did not fight fair. Walls closed. Floors shifted. Shadows dragged bodies away. And above it all, Ainz watched, his throne room illuminated by the spectacle of battle projected across shimmering mirrors. "So this is the power of the Sith," he mused. "Rage without discipline. Strength without wisdom." Demiurge bowed beside him. "Should we intervene, my lord?" "No. Let them struggle. Let them learn who rules this battlefield." Minutes later, one figure reached the inner sanctum, her armor cracked, her blade sparking. The female Inquisitor stumbled into the throne chamber, gasping for breath. She froze when she saw him. The skeletal figure on the throne. The godlike aura pressing down on her mind. "You are Ainz Ooal Gown." Ainz tilted his head slightly. "And you are one of the Emperor's pets." She ignited her saber, forcing herself forward. "The Emperor commands the Force itself. You cannot." He raised a finger. She stopped mid-sentence. The air shimmered, and her saber flew from her hand, clattering to the ground. Her body rose into the air, choking, suspended by an invisible grip. "You mistake me for one of your kind," Ainz said calmly. "You think in absolutes, light, dark, life, death. But I am beyond your force. I am the silence that comes after it." Her body twisted, not violently, but precisely. Her scream died before it could leave her throat. In a shimmer of green light, she disintegrated into dust. At that exact moment, the doors burst open. Vader entered. The floor trembled as the Dark Lord of the Sith approached, his crimson blade igniting with a thunderous hiss. Enough. Ainz turned, unbothered. Ah. The apprentice returns. You killed my inquisitors. They were weak. Vader raised his saber. Then face one who is not. For a moment, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, they clashed. Vader surged forward, his saber striking in a crimson blur. Ainz countered with a gesture, summoning a translucent barrier that absorbed the blow. The energy rippled outward, shattering nearby columns. Vader pressed harder, the force augmenting his speed and strength. Each strike cracked the barrier further until, with a roar, he broke through, his blade slicing toward Ainz's skull. Ainz caught it between two fingers. The blade stopped. The hum of plasma flickered uselessly against his hand. Impressive, Ainz said. You channel emotion well. But emotion is chaos, and chaos is fragile. With a pulse of energy, he released a burst of necrotic magic that hurled Vader across the chamber. The Sith crashed through a pillar, armor sparking, but rose again immediately, rage fueling him. The desert winds of Tatooine howled again, this time not with sand, but with storm. Above the dunes, the sky had split in half. One side burned gold from twin suns, the other churned black, tainted by the crimson glow of descending Imperial shuttles. Aboard the lead shuttle, Darth Vader stood in silence, his cape whipping around him. Behind him, 12 Inquisitors knelt, each a vessel of the dark side, each trembling from what they had seen in their master's vision. We face no mortal, Vader said through the mechanical rasp of his mask. This enemy commands the dead. He feeds on fear. He ignited his lightsaber. The blood-red blade hissed to life, cutting through the darkness like a challenge. But the dark side fears nothing. The shuttle bay opened. Wind screamed. They leapt. Nazarick's shadows stirred. Albedo's wings unfolded with a hiss, her armor gleaming like molten obsidian. She gazed at the incoming ships with fury that bordered on devotion. How dare they descend upon our Lord's domain again? Beside her, Shaltir Bloodfallen twirled her parasol and smiled. Let me drink them, Albedo. I'll drain their strength, their force, whatever it is they worship. Ainz raised his skeletal hand. No. The command was soft, but it froze the air. These are not ordinary invaders. I will face their leader myself. Demiurge stepped forward, eyes glittering behind his glasses. My lord, allow us to soften them. You will hold your positions, Ainz interrupted. Today, Nazarick does not hide in shadows. Today, this galaxy learns what stands before it. When the Inquisitors landed, the air itself seemed to rot. The sand beneath their boots blackened, whispering with ghostly residue. And then, silence. A figure emerged from the shifting haze, tall, draped in flowing black robes that shimmered with faint gold runes. His eyes burned red within a skull of polished bone. Ainz Ooal Gown. You must be the Emperor's hand, Ainz said, his voice echoing like thunder from the grave. Vader's saber hummed menacingly. And you must be the illusion that calls itself God. Illusion? Ainz tilted his head. Tell me, child of metal, do you bleed? Before Vader could respond, the sand beneath him exploded. Dozens of undead burst from the ground, stormtroopers reanimated, their armor cracked and burning with blue fire. The Inquisitors reacted instantly, lightsabers igniting in a blinding web of color. Blades met bone, dark power met necrotic force. Screams filled the desert. Ainz raised his hand, and the dead obeyed. Each fallen Inquisitor rose again, twisted by his will. You cannot destroy death, Ainz said simply. Vader charged. Their clash shook the planet. The first strike from Vader's lightsaber met Ainz's staff, not with resistance, but with absorption. The blade dimmed, flickering wildly as if its fury had been swallowed. Vader pressed harder, channeling the dark side through his cybernetic limbs. The Force screamed around him, bending the air, crushing rock, but Ainz barely moved. "Your weapon channels emotion," Ainz murmured. "Interesting, and inefficient." He thrust out his hand, a wave of black energy erupted, tossing Vader through the air like a toy. The ground cracked from the impact. Vader rose slowly, his armor sparking. "You will not defeat me." "Defeat?" Ainz chuckled softly. "No, Lord Vader. I am studying you." The battle raged around them, Albedo and Sheltir cutting through squads of Inquisitors, Demiurge unleashing flaming demons that devoured Force users alive. But in the center of the chaos, Vader and Ainz stood locked in a duel that was more than physical, it was ideological. The Force versus the Void. Life versus death. Power that flows versus power that commands. Vader hurled his saber, a red comet spinning through the air, and followed with a Force choke, his mechanical fist clenching. Ainz froze mid-motion, the invisible grip tightening around his neck. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath. "You cannot kill what is already dead," Ainz whispered. The air around him collapsed. Black flame erupted from his bones, shattering the Force grip like glass. His voice deepened, echoing with otherworldly resonance. "Now, my turn." Vader raised his saber just as Ainz spoke two words in a language older than the galaxy itself. Reality slash. The world tore open. The sand split in a perfect line, a wound in space itself, racing toward Vader at the speed of light. He barely dodged, the edge of the cut shearing through his cape and carving a deep trench behind him that glowed like molten glass. Vader's breathing quickened. "Impossible. Impossible," Ainz repeated. "That word is for the living." He lifted his staff again, channeling another spell, Black Hole. The desert screamed. The suns dimmed. A sphere of absolute darkness formed between them, dragging everything toward it, ships, corpses, even the light of the Force. Vader thrust both hands forward, pushing with every ounce of power he had. The Force roared in defiance, clashing against the gravitational pull. His armor creaked. Circuits sparked. For a moment, the two energies balanced, magic and the Force locked in a cosmic standoff. And then, they merged. The explosion was silent. A sphere of blue-white light expanded outward, swallowing the desert. When the light faded, the landscape was gone, replaced by a glassy crater miles wide. At its center, Vader stood kneeling. His armor was scorched, his cape gone. Across from him, Ainz floated, untouched. "You fight well," Ainz said, lowering his staff. "Had you existed in my world, you might have served me." Vader rose, breathing ragged. "And you would have made a fine apprentice." The two stared at each other, bound not by hatred but by mutual recognition, two beings trapped between life and death, wielding impossible power for masters who would never understand them. Then, the stars above twisted. A vast shadow descended, not a ship, but something far worse. Palpatine. He appeared as lightning, stepping down through the storm, his body surrounded by a hurricane of dark energy. His laughter echoed like thunder. "At last. I see you, Necromancer." Ainz turned to face him. The very air bent under the clash of their auras. "You call yourself Emperor," Ainz said. "But your dominion ends at the edge of your fear." Palpatine's eyes burned. "And yours ends now." He raised both hands. Lightning poured forth, not blue, but violet-black, infused with the rage of 1,000 Sith. Ainz countered with super-tier magic. Their powers collided, Force lightning against pure void energy, and the galaxy itself seemed to tremble. From orbit, Imperial fleets and Nazarick's guardians watched in silence. This was no longer a battle. It was apocalypse. The storm over Tatooine grew until it devoured the sky. Lightning webbed across the void, swirling around the two figures who now floated high above the shattered desert, Emperor Palpatine, drenched in violet rage, and Ainz Ooal Gown, the skeletal overlord whose power defied the natural order. Even from orbit, the storm could be seen, a storm that screamed. Star destroyers shuddered as readings spiked beyond calculation. Nazarick's guardians looked on in reverence and terror. The Force trembled. Magic warped. The galaxy held its breath. You have no place in this reality. Palpatine roared, voice booming like the cry of a god. You are a disease, a mockery of the living. Ainz's eyes burned crimson. I am death itself, he replied calmly. And death exists in all realities. The Emperor raised his arms, lightning cascading down like rivers of fire. The air cracked, and from the sand rose enormous pillars of molten glass, each charged with Force energy. The ground pulsed like a living creature, the dark side reshaping matter itself. Ainz countered with a motionless wave of his hand. The pillars froze mid-rise, turned black, and shattered into ash. You twist life into suffering, Ainz said. But I offer peace, a peace eternal. Palpatine snarled, his face twisting with fury. Peace is a lie. There is only power. Then you are a fool, Ainz replied, and the sky cracked open. The Overlord's staff pulsed with ancient symbols, glowing gold and violet. Dozens of circles appeared behind him, layers of sigils, rotating like gears of a godly machine. Super-tier magic, fallen down. A pillar of white fire descended from the heavens, engulfing the Emperor in light so pure that even the suns dimmed. The sands turned to vapor. Ships in low orbit lost power, their hulls cracking from sheer pressure. For a heartbeat, Palpatine vanished. Then, a voice whispered through the storm. You dare strike me? The light shattered. From the ruins stepped the Emperor, untouched, his cloak burning with black lightning, eyes now twin voids. You are powerful, he admitted. But you misunderstand the dark side. It is not death. It is hunger. He stretched out his hand, and the Force surged like a tidal wave. Ainz staggered back as invisible tendrils wrapped around him, pulling not at his body, but at his very existence. His mana, his essence, began to drain. For the first time, Nazarick's ruler felt it, the pull of mortality. You cannot drain me, he hissed. Palpatine grinned, lightning crawling across his teeth. Everything decays. Even gods. The two powers intertwined, necromancy and the Force consuming one another, forming a black and violet sphere between them that grew, pulsing faster, expanding outward. Reality began to scream. Inside Nazarick, alarms blared across every floor. Demiurge's readings were off the charts. The dimensional boundaries are collapsing. My Lord's magic is destabilizing this galaxy's core energy field. Albedo gripped her spear, trembling. If the Overlord perishes. He won't, Shaltir snapped. He's Ainz Sama. But as they looked to the sky, a horrific truth dawned, the duel above wasn't just threatening the planet. The collision of powers was tearing a hole through space-time itself. Stars twisted into spirals. The desert below flickered, becoming a mirage of two worlds, half Tatooine, half the tomb of Nazarick's throne room, merging and breaking apart like shattered glass. High above, Vader watched from a ruined ridge, cloak whipping in the cosmic wind. His breathing was uneven, his mask cracked from the earlier blast. This is not power, he whispered. This is annihilation. He turned toward the horizon, and for a brief second, he saw it, another world bleeding through the rift. A world of bone-white skies and rivers of green fire. A world that whispered in countless voices, Nazarick. He realized the truth, Ainz's domain wasn't invading the galaxy. The galaxy was being pulled into Ainz. Ainz roared, the sound ancient, godlike. He thrust out his staff, forcing the expanding void back. Enough. This world is not yours to consume. Palpatine sneered. Nor yours to command. The Emperor's form began to change, his body disintegrating into pure dark side energy, a being of living lightning. I am the Force, he declared. I am eternal. Ainz's eyes flared brighter. Then so am I. He dropped his staff, and extended his hand. Wish upon a star. The ultimate super-tier spell. The air went still. The galaxy fell silent. From the depths of the void, countless souls screamed, stormtroopers, inquisitors, even ancient Sith, all pulled into a single, radiant point above Ainz's palm. The light became unbearable, piercing through every fleet, every planet. Then Ainz closed his hand. The explosion was unlike any seen before. It wasn't fire or energy, it was erasure. A wave of null swept across space, consuming everything unnatural, everything bound by the Force. The Emperor screamed, his lightning twisting into agony. You can't. Return to nothing, Ainz whispered. And with that, the Emperor of the galaxy was undone. The lightning faded. The darkness receded. Only silence remained. Hours later, as the storm cleared, the Great Tomb of Nazarick floated once more in the calm of space, untouched. On its throne sat Ainz Ooal Gown, motionless, his skeletal fingers resting on the armrests. Albedo approached carefully. My lord, are you unharmed? Ainz opened his eyes. The crimson glow was softer now, reflective, almost weary. He was powerful, Ainz said quietly. A master of emotion and fear. But in the end, still bound by life's weakness. Demiurge bowed deeply. You have conquered their greatest sorcerer, my lord. What now? Ainz looked out the window, at the stars now drifting where once the Empire had ruled. Now, he said, we claim what remains. He rose, spreading his arms as his voice echoed through every corridor of Nazarick. The Force belongs to me now. Meanwhile, far away on Coruscant, deep within the shattered Jedi temple, a faint hum stirred within the holocrons. A voice whispered, ancient, wise, full of light. Balance must be restored. And somewhere, unseen, the Force began to heal itself. Because though Palpatine was gone and the Sith were silenced, something far older now ruled the stars, something that did not belong to this galaxy at all. And it was learning. For days, the galaxy lay silent. No transmission from Coruscant. No patrols from the Empire. No pulse from the Force. Planets that once trembled beneath the Emperor's shadow now hung motionless, their skies heavy with fear, and something colder. Because in that silence, a new presence had filled the void. Ainz Ooal Gown. The necromancer god. The Emperor of Death. In the heart of Coruscant, the Imperial Palace had become something unrecognizable. The golden towers were wrapped in black vines that pulsed like veins. Ghostly banners of Nazarick fluttered against the eternal twilight. Stormtroopers now walked in silence, their eyes hollow, armor scorched with runes of undeath. They needed no food, no sleep, only command. Ainz sat upon a throne forged from the wreckage of the Emperor's old seat, his skeletal hand resting upon his staff of Ainz Ooal Gown. How curious, he said softly. A galaxy built upon emotion and conflict, yet now, in death, it finds peace. Albedo stood at his side, radiant and devoted. You have delivered them from chaos, my lord. This is your era. But Ainz's gaze lingered beyond the palace windows, toward the stars, where something faint shimmered. A flicker of light. Peace, he murmured, is never permanent. Far beyond Coruscant, in the ruins of Octu, the ancient world of the first Jedi, a whisper stirred among the stones. The sea was restless. The wind carried voices, old, forgotten, luminous. He has taken the Force, said one. Then we take it back, said another. From the mist, 7 figures emerged, not in flesh, but in light. Their forms wavered like blue flame. Yoda. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Anakin Skywalker. Qui-Gon Jinn. Mace Windu. Ahsoka Tano. Luke Skywalker. The greatest of the Jedi, united across time and death itself. Yoda's ears drooped slightly, his eyes glowing with thought. Disturbance, great it is. Balance lost, the Force has become. The Death One feeds upon its essence. Anakin's spirit stepped forward, expression grim. I felt him. His power doesn't flow, it devours. He's not dark, not light. He's something else. Luke looked to his father. Then we fight him. Obi-Wan's voice was calm, but heavy. Fighting death is not the same as fighting evil. He has no hate, no greed, only inevitability. Yoda tapped his cane, though it was only made of light, and said, even inevitability, undone by hope can be. The seven joined hands, forming a circle of light. The air rippled, the sea stilled, and from the waves rose a brilliant sphere, the purest essence of the Force. One chance we have, Yoda whispered. To make the Force remember life. Meanwhile, back on Coruscant, Ainz rose from his throne. A tremor passed through the air, subtle at first, then stronger, until the walls themselves began to hum. Demiurge appeared in a swirl of black smoke. My lord, readings indicate a surge of anomalous energy. Not magic, something else. Albedo frowned. Could it be remnants of the Emperor's power? Ainz shook his head slowly. No. This is not hatred. This is harmony. His gaze shifted upward. The stars flickered, then bled gold. Far above, the veil between worlds tore open again. But this time, not from darkness, from light. A column of radiant energy descended, striking the palace roof with divine force. The ground cracked. The undead screamed as the air filled with warmth. And from that column stepped seven glowing figures. The Jedi. For the first time since the Emperor's fall, Ainz felt something he had almost forgotten. Pressure. Not from mana, nor magic, but from will, the will of the living. So, he said, his tone respectful. The fabled warriors of light. You came to reclaim your world. Yoda stepped forward, his form flickering. Not to reclaim, do we come. To remind, we do. Ainz tilted his head. Remind me? Anakin's ghost glared. That the Force isn't yours to own. You may command death, but not life. Ainz extended his hand. Life and death are two sides of the same order. I bring unity, you cling to imbalance. Luke's eyes hardened. Then you misunderstand balance entirely. The palace trembled as Ainz raised his staff. You dare challenge me? I am death. I have erased gods. The Jedi formed a line, sabers of light materializing in their ghostly hands, burning pure blue and green. Yoda sighed softly. Erased gods, he has. But faced hope, never. Then let us show him, said Windu, and the battle began. The clash was beyond mortal comprehension. Ainz unleashed torrents of necrotic flame, the Jedi countered with arcs of luminous Force energy. Each swing of a saber left trails of living light that seared through the darkness like wings. Demiurge's ward shattered. Entire undead legions dissolved under the purity of their strike. Ainz fought with the fury of a fallen god, spells cascading like meteors, each powerful enough to crush mountains, but the Jedi were not flesh. They were will. When he struck them, they dissolved into light. When they struck him, he staggered. And with each exchange, the Force around them began to pulse stronger, brighter. It was learning to breathe again. Then Luke stepped forward. He held no saber now, only his hand, extended in peace. You're not our enemy, he said. You've lost your world, haven't you? That's why you came here. You don't want to rule, you just don't want to vanish. Ainz froze. For the first time, his voice faltered. You understand? I've been where you are, Luke said quietly. Power, control, all of it means nothing if it kills what makes us real. You're trying to save what's already gone. Ainz looked down at his skeletal hand. The cracks of power running through it shimmered faintly. I only wanted to protect them, he said, the words almost human. My people. My creation. Yoda stepped closer, placing a tiny glowing hand over Ainz's chest. Protect, yes. But possess, no. The light around them brightened, the combined essence of every Jedi, every lost life, every spark of the Force that had been consumed. And Ainz, for the first time, felt something pierce through the void within him, warmth. He lowered his staff. The black energy faded. The undead legions turned to dust. The Jedi faded too, one by one, their mission complete. Before they vanished, Anakin looked back at him. Don't lose yourself again. Yoda smiled. Balance restored, it is. Keeper of death, become you may, but destroyer, no longer. Then they were gone. Ainz stood alone atop the ruined palace, the wind quiet around him. He looked toward the stars, countless worlds reborn, the Force alive again. Balance, he murmured. Perhaps, this galaxy has something to teach even me. He turned, his cloak billowing, and descended back into Nazarick's depths, not as conqueror, but as watcher. For in the silence that followed, both the Force and death found something they had never shared before. Understanding. The sky above Coruscant was no longer blue, it was bleeding. Crimson cracks stretched across the heavens, each pulse echoing the distant heartbeat of something vast beyond reality. The Galactic Senate had fallen silent. Entire star systems trembled in psychic dread as Nazarick's shadow fell across the galaxy. The tomb, now a fortress planet of obsidian spires and undead citadels, hung in orbit like a crown of death. Every time it shifted, another fleet vanished. And deep within its heart, Ainz Ooal Gown sat upon his throne. His eyes glowed brighter than any star. His voice echoed through the void. Let the galaxy bear witness, to the age of the undying. The Force shuddered. Across the galaxy, Jedi and Sith alike collapsed as the currents of life twisted. The very balance of the universe was unraveling. Meanwhile, in the shadow of Coruscant's ruined temple, Luke Skywalker stood beside Rey, his ghost form flickering with strain. He's consuming everything, Rey said, clutching her saber. He's not a Sith, not a being of the Force at all, Luke answered. He's something, beyond it. The Jedi remnants gathered, Rey, Grogu, Cal Kestis, and even Ahsoka. They knew this was no ordinary enemy. And yet, as if fate itself demanded balance, another presence arrived. From the void, wrapped in thunder and fury, the Force itself manifested. A cosmic silhouette. The embodiment of will, balance, and destiny. He is the void beyond destiny, the entity said. But every void has its counterforce. Centuries later, the story of the undying king became myth. The Force was no longer the same, it had learned from the touch of the unknown. And somewhere, deep in forgotten hyperspace, an ancient tomb still waited. Its doors sealed. Its master silent. But its name, whispered through the ages, remained. They called themselves the Order of Balance, neither Jedi nor Sith. They wore no robes, no colors of allegiance. Each member carried a shard of an ancient crystal, infused with both Force energy and arcane essence, a remnant of Nazarick's lingering magic. Rey became their first Grand Master. Under her guidance, the Order learned to channel both life and void. They healed by embracing darkness and fought by acknowledging light. Where Jedi once preached restraint, the Order taught understanding. Where Sith sought domination, they sought harmony. They became legend, warrior, philosophers who could bend reality, phase through time, and even speak with the dead through the echo of the Force. And their creed was carved into the halls of New Coruscant. The Force is not light or dark, it is memory. But even legends cast long shadows. In the farthest edge of the unknown regions, an uncharted star system began to flicker. Space folded, not unlike the day Nazarick first appeared. And among the drifting fragments of black stone, a throne pulsed. Inside, a skeletal hand twitched. A single red light burned. So, they learned, a hollow voice murmured through the void. Then let them teach the next generation, to fear me properly. The tomb of Nazarick stirred again. And through its corridors, ancient guardians, Albedo, Demiurge, Cocytus, awoke from timeless slumber. Their master's return was inevitable. The cycle, unbroken. They called him God, monster, savior, but in truth, he was none. He was the reminder that no galaxy, no power, and no faith, lasts forever. The camera pans over the stars, where two great energies, the Force and the Arcane, swirl together like twin galaxies colliding. In the end, the Force did not destroy him. It learned from him. And perhaps that was his final victory. The screen fades to black. A whisper echoes. Ainz Ooal Gown, eternal.